HOA cut off my sister's island bridge. They said it was for safety reasons, but I knew it wasn't about safety. It was about control. They didn't realize my sister wasn't just anyone. And when they blocked her only way out, the FBI showed up at her door. And that's when everything changed. Hey there. Welcome back to HOA Stories. I'm Jake. I live in a quiet lakeside community just outside Oregon, where everything looks peaceful from the outside. But behind those picket fences, you'll find the pettiest power struggles you've ever seen. If you've ever had an HOA nightmare, you're in the right place. So before we start, hit that subscribe button, and if you hate HOA bullies as much as I do, type BOHOA in the comments right now, and share this video with that one friend who's been fined for having the wrong color mailbox. Now, let's get into it. My sister, Claire, bought that island house 5 years ago. It was this gorgeous old Victorian place, half covered in vines, sitting in the middle of a lake, connected to the main road by a small wooden bridge. When she bought it, everyone told her she was crazy, too isolated, too far from everything. But Claire loved peace. She said the sound of water helped her think. And me? I used to visit her every weekend. We'd sit on that porch with coffee, talking about how perfect life was, until the HOA decided to improve things. It started with an email. The bridge connecting Lot 74 is not up to HOA safety standards. Repairs must begin within 30 days or the structure will be removed. Claire forwarded it to me with a laughing emoji. She thought it was some mix-up. The HOA didn't own the bridge. It was built by the previous owner decades ago. It wasn't even part of the association's jurisdiction. But that's the thing about HOAs. Once they taste control, they never stop. 2 weeks later, a board member named Nancy showed up at Claire's place. Hard hat, clipboard, bright orange vest. She looked like she was auditioning for a construction ad. Claire called me that night. Said Nancy walked around the bridge, taking pictures, asking about permits, then warned her the HOA might take action. Claire told her politely to leave. Nancy didn't. The next morning, a bulldozer appeared at the lake's edge. No warning, no notice, just the growl of an engine. By the time Claire ran outside, half the bridge was already torn apart. She screamed at them to stop, but the HOA rep just waved her off, saying it was board-approved maintenance. They destroyed the only way in and out of her house, and drove away like nothing happened. I got there by boat that night. Claire was sitting on her porch, crying. The water reflected the house lights like broken glass. I'd never seen her so angry. "This isn't legal," I said. She nodded, but her eyes were already cold. That's when she told me something that froze me inside. "I called my supervisor," she said. "I told her to open an investigation." I stared at her. "Supervisor." She smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "Jake," she said quietly, "I work for the FBI." Turns out, she wasn't just my calm, lake-loving sister. She was part of a federal task force handling property fraud and public corruption. She'd been undercover for months on another case. But when the HOA destroyed that bridge, she saw something she couldn't ignore. "Let's see how deep their control goes," she said. And just like that, it wasn't a family dispute anymore. It was a federal one. The next few days were chaos. The HOA posted notices everywhere, claiming Claire's bridge was a public hazard, that non-compliance would result in fines. But Claire was already 2 steps ahead. She started collecting emails, board decisions, and budget reports. Every little lie they wrote down, every cent they misplaced. She told me, "They're hiding something. I can feel it." And she was right. 2 weeks later, the HOA's treasurer suddenly resigned. Then Nancy stopped showing up at meetings. Rumors started flying, something about missing funds, and an anonymous complaint filed with state investigators. Meanwhile, the HOA president kept acting calm, smiling at neighbors, pretending everything was fine. But everyone could feel it. The board was cracking from the inside. One morning, a black SUV rolled down the neighborhood road. Tinted windows, government plates. It stopped right in front of the HOA office. 3 men in suits stepped out. One of them flashed a badge. The president froze mid-sentence. And Claire? She stood on her porch watching from across the lake, calm, collected, and finally satisfied. The same bridge they destroyed was the reason they got exposed. But that was just the beginning, because the investigation didn't stop there. The HOA had ties with the local construction firm, the same one that accidentally demolished that bridge. And when the FBI started asking questions, the board started turning on each other. That night, I asked Claire if she was scared. She said, "Scared? No." Then she looked at the lake, her reflection shimmering under the moonlight. "They thought they could isolate me," she whispered, "but they just built their own trap." And that's when it hit me. The bridge wasn't destroyed. It was replaced with evidence. If your HOA tried to control your property like this, would you fight back quietly like Claire? Or burn the bridge right in front of them? The night after the FBI showed up, you could feel the silence in the neighborhood. No lawnmowers, no barking dogs, just the soft hum of whispers through open windows. Everyone was pretending nothing had changed, but the air felt heavier, like the calm before a storm. Claire called me early that morning. Her voice was calm, too calm. "They know," she said. I asked who. "The board," she whispered. "They know someone reported them, and they think it's me." I told her to stay low. Let the FBI handle it. But if you knew Claire, you'd know that wasn't her style. She wasn't the kind to hide behind rules. She was the rule book. And now, she was about to rewrite it. That afternoon, a shiny black pickup rolled up near the lake. 2 HOA officers stepped out, clipboard in hand, wearing matching polos that said Lakeside Association Authority. Claire watched from her porch as they nailed a bright red paper to the edge of the broken bridge. Final notice, property access revoked. They were cutting her off completely, and to make it worse, they posted a sign saying unauthorized entry subject to fine. Fine. For crossing the bridge to her own home. You couldn't make this stuff up. I called the HOA office myself. A woman answered, voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Hello. This is Nancy's replacement, Janice. How may I help you today?" I told her they had no legal right to block Claire's property. She said, "Sir, the HOA board voted unanimously. This is a matter of safety and compliance." Then she hung up. That night I drove back to the lake. The bridge looked eerie under the moonlight, half torn, half floating, the red sign flapping in the wind. Claire was sitting by a lantern, reading papers, FBI documents, reports, and something else. "Look at this," she said, handing me a stack of printed emails. They were HOA board messages, all leaked anonymously. One line stood out. "Once the bridge is gone, we can move forward with the sale. She'll have no way to contest." Sale? Sale of what? I asked. Claire looked at me with that sharp, knowing stare. "The land under this house," she said. "They want to sell the lakefront to a developer. My house is in their way." It all made sense now. The sudden safety concerns, the fake maintenance reports, the rush to demolish the bridge. They wanted her off that island, because if they could isolate her, They could declare the property abandoned and hand it over to their developer friend. Classic HOA corruption. Greed wrapped in rules. The next morning, Claire went quiet. She packed a small black case, put on her work badge, and told me to stay at my cabin. When I asked what she was doing, she said, "Just going for a walk," where they wanted me to. A few hours later, she called me from the HOA office. Her voice was calm but steady. "Jake, I think I found something." She'd used her FBI clearance to access the county's construction permits. And guess what? Half of them were fake. Stamped, approved, but signed by non-existent officials. It was a money laundering scheme, hidden in plain sight, using HOA maintenance projects. And when the bridge was destroyed, it triggered a paper trail leading straight back to them. She took photos, emails, documents. Then she walked right up to the HOA president's office. "Morning, Mr. Harris," she said with a polite smile. He smiled back, pretending to be friendly. But when she showed him the badge, his face dropped. The man literally froze mid-sentence. She told him calmly, "I'm here about the bridge you destroyed." He tried to laugh it off, but she kept talking about the fake signatures, the money trail, and the emails. By the time she was done, he wasn't laughing anymore. When she got back home, she looked exhausted, but satisfied. I asked her what happened. She said, "He called his lawyer before I even left the building." Then she showed me something, a thick, yellow envelope. Inside were 3 HOA violation letters, each one stamped, dated, but never delivered. "Jake," she said quietly, "these were supposed to go to homeowners who voted against the board's last land deal. They just vanished. They were silencing votes." That night, I helped her scan every document. We made copies, sent them to her supervisor, and stored backups in the cloud. But around midnight, we heard footsteps, not from the island, from the shore. 2 flashlights flickered near the old bulldozer. Voices carried across the water. "Check the files in her porch. She's got copies," the board said. I grabbed the spotlight and flashed it toward them. They froze, then bolted into the trees. The next morning, Claire filed a federal interference complaint. Within 48 hours, 2 more SUVs rolled into the neighborhood. FBI agents, real ones this time. They sealed the HOA office, confiscated hard drives, and questioned everyone. The board tried to deny everything, but the evidence was too strong. Emails, falsified invoices, bank transfers labeled as repair funds. It was all there. Nancy, the one who started it, came back into the picture too. Turns out, she'd been forced out after refusing to sign a false report. She became the key witness. Claire told me the FBI was building a bigger case now. Not just against the HOA, but against the construction company too. It was bigger than anyone expected. By the end of that week, the neighborhood was silent again. But this time, it wasn't fear. It was shame. People started tearing down their HOA proud signs. Neighbors whispered apologies. And for the first time in years, you could feel freedom in the air. Claire stood by the lake one evening, looking at what was left of the bridge. "I used to think this house was my escape," she said softly. "But now, it's my evidence." I asked her what she'd do next. She smiled faintly. "I'm going to rebuild it. Stronger this time. But first, I want to see who else they've hurt." And that's when she opened her laptop. Inside a hidden folder labeled "Letters That Vanished" were names, addresses, and 20 more homeowners. All fined, all silenced, all victims. This wasn't over yet. Not even close. If you found out your HOA was secretly selling land under your home, Would you expose them like Claire? Or just pack up and leave before it got ugly? The next few days felt strange, like the whole neighborhood was holding its breath. Mailboxes stayed empty, lawns went unmowed, and every HOA member suddenly had an excuse to work from home. Nobody wanted to be seen talking to Claire. It was like she'd become radioactive. But she didn't stop. She spent hours on her laptop, collecting records, checking transactions, mapping connections. Every time I walked in, she had a new document open, and every time, she looked a little angrier. "Jake," she said one morning, "do you know how much they spent on bridge repairs last year?" I shrugged. "No idea." She turned her screen toward me. $58,000. I blinked. "The bridge didn't cost that much to build." She nodded slowly. "Exactly. Turns out, that money never went to a contractor. It went to a company that didn't even exist. Same pattern over and over. Fake repair invoices, real HOA funds, different bank accounts, all leading back to the same name, Harris Construction Group, the president's brother." That evening, we met with her FBI contact, Agent McNeil. Tall guy, buzz-cut, voice like gravel. He said, "We've been tracking similar cases in 3 other states. Looks like your HOA's part of something bigger." Claire looked calm, but I could see her hands tighten on the table. She wasn't just angry anymore. She was determined. A few days later, things started falling apart. Fast. The HOA vice president, Mr. Lowell, suddenly resigned. His letter said, personal reasons, but rumor was his house got raided at dawn. Then Janice, the new Nancy replacement, stopped answering emails. The HOA website went offline, and a printed note appeared on the community board. All association meetings are suspended until further notice. But the neighbors, they weren't buying it anymore. Everyone started whispering about the missing money, about the FBI cars parked near the office, about how Claire's name was behind it all. Some called her a hero, some called her a snitch, but everyone watched her now, every time she stepped outside. One night, I heard a knock at my door. It was an older man, Mr. Bennett, who'd lived in the neighborhood forever. He looked nervous, kept glancing around before speaking. "I heard about your sister," he said. I think I have something you should see." He handed me a dusty old folder. Inside were photos, copies of letters, and a list of HOA fees from years ago. He said, "They did this to me too. I refused to pay for a fake landscaping fine. They threatened foreclosure." I felt sick. This wasn't a one-time scam. It was a pattern. The next day, Claire met with him. She listened quietly, took notes, and thanked him. Then she said something that made him freeze. "Mr. Bennett, you're not alone. We've already identified 7 other victims." That evening, Claire called a few trusted neighbors for a coffee meeting. 6 people showed up. All of them had stories. Overcharged dues, missing receipts, threats of liens. Every single one had been bullied by the same board. And then, the moment that changed everything. Mrs. Hopkins, a quiet woman who rarely spoke, said softly, "I used to be the HOA treasurer." Everyone turned to her. She said, "They forced me to sign off on checks, told me it was maintenance money. But when I refused to sign one, they forged my signature instead." Claire's jaw tightened. That was the missing piece. Forgery. Now it wasn't just corruption. It was a federal crime. A few nights later, the HOA president, Mr. Harris, called for an emergency board meeting. But this time it wasn't at the office. It was at his lakefront house. No agenda, no announcements, no recording allowed. Of course, that didn't stop Claire. She set up a small drone right across the water from his backyard. I watched the feed from her laptop. Grainy video, but you could see enough. 5 board members, all arguing, waving papers, shouting. At one point, Harris slammed the table and shouted, "She's not just some homeowner. She's with the feds." The room went silent. Then another voice, probably Lowell's, said, "Then it's over." The next morning, half the neighborhood woke up to for sale signs on the lawns of every board member. They were all leaving, running, but it was too late, because the FBI wasn't done. Claire got a call later that day. Agent McNeil's voice crackled through the phone. "We have enough," he said. "Wire fraud, document forgery, and property theft. You did good, Agent." I could hear her exhale, slow and deep. For the first time in weeks, she smiled. But she didn't celebrate. She just said, "Let's make sure this never happens again." The next few weeks were surreal. News crews showed up. Reporters called it the Island HOA scandal. Neighbors started showing support, leaving notes on her porch, flowers, even baked pies. The same people who once avoided her now called her brave. But one letter stood out. No name, no return address, just a single line typed on white paper. "You've made enemies in the wrong places." Claire stared at it quietly, then folded it, slipped it into a file, and said, "Good. That means they're scared." That night we stood on the shore, looking at the half-built bridge. The moonlight glimmered across the lake. The wind carried the faint sound of frogs and crickets. Claire whispered, "Funny, isn't it? They destroyed this bridge to trap me, but in the end, they trapped themselves." I nodded slowly, because she was right. The bridge wasn't just wood and nails anymore. It was proof. It was justice. It was her victory. But even then, she couldn't shake that last message. Because somewhere, someone was still watching. If you were in Claire's shoes, would you stop after exposing the board? Or keep digging until every hidden name was revealed? The letter sat on the kitchen counter all night. Just one line, printed in black ink. "You've made enemies in the wrong places." No name, no fingerprints, no return address, just a chill that didn't leave the house for days. By morning, I could tell Claire hadn't slept. Her eyes were red, her coffee untouched. I said, "You think it's just someone trying to scare you?" She looked up, slow and cold. "No, I think it's someone who knows I'm not finished yet." That same afternoon, a black SUV parked outside our house. No plates, tinted windows, just sat there. For hours. When I finally walked outside to check, pulled away, silent, like it had never been there. But it left a feeling that someone was watching, waiting, listening. That evening, Claire opened her laptop again. Her files were gone. Not deleted, wiped. Every folder, every photo, every scanned document erased. She froze, then whispered, "They hacked me." I watched her hands tremble on the keyboard. But a second later, she took a deep breath and said, "Good thing I keep backups." She reached under her desk and pulled out a small black USB drive. "Encrypted," she said. "They can't touch this." Still, the letter, it changed everything. She wasn't chasing crooks anymore. She was being hunted. 2 days later, the neighborhood got even quieter. The houses that once belonged to board members were now empty. Curtains drawn, mail piling up, lawns dying. Like ghosts had moved in. But something was off. Every night, I'd see the same van parked near the lake. Engine off, lights out. Different plates each time, but same driver's shape in the dark. It wasn't FBI surveillance. Claire checked. Whoever it was didn't want to be found. Then came the strange phone calls. No number. No voice, just static and then a click. Sometimes at midnight, sometimes during the day. Always brief, always eerie. Finally, one night, Claire said, "Enough." She opened her encrypted drive, pulled out the files she hadn't sent to the FBI yet. "I was saving this for later," she whispered. "But I think later just arrived." On the screen was a name: State Infrastructure Fund Committee, the department that handled the Lake Bridge project years ago. Attached to it were scanned invoices showing massive payments, signed by Harris Construction, approved by local officials. She said, "Jake." The HOA was just the surface. She traced the paper trail one name at a time. From the HOA treasurer to a city clerk to a regional contractor, all the way to a man named Richard Dole, the county project director. And here's the thing, Dole wasn't just connected to Harris. He'd founded Harris Construction under a fake name. He was funneling money through local HOAs across 3 towns. Maintenance, repairs, landscaping, all fake. All designed to look like small neighborhood budgets. But when added up, millions. Claire stared at the screen, speechless. Then she said softly, "This is bigger than any HOA." And that's when the knock came. 3 hard knocks. I opened the door, nobody there. But on the porch lay a plain brown envelope. Inside, a single flash drive. No label. We plugged it into her laptop. A folder popped up. Inside were pictures, dozens of them. Claire at the park. Claire at the store. Claire at home. Someone had been following her. And the final picture was me, standing by her car, taken just last night. She froze. I felt my stomach twist. Then, she noticed a hidden text file in the same folder. It read, "Stop digging, or next time we won't miss." The next morning, Agent McNeil came by. She showed him everything: the photos, the message, the invoices. He went pale. "This isn't local anymore," he said. "We're pulling you out of here. Both of you." But Claire shook her head. "No. If we leave, they win. I'm not done." He sighed. "Then at least let us keep a watch on you." She agreed, reluctantly. That night we packed go bags just in case. She backed up everything again. And we slept in shifts. But sleep didn't bring peace. At 2:43 a.m., the house alarm went off. Glass shattered in the kitchen. I grabbed a flashlight, rushed down the hall. The back door was open. Footprints in the mud, leading toward the woods. Claire came running down, phone in hand, calling McNeil. By the time the cops arrived, whoever it was gone. They found a single item near the fence, a black leather glove. Inside the glove was a folded piece of paper. Same typed font. "Final warning. McNeil put us under temporary protection." Unmarked car outside, cameras installed, FBI tracking the van's movement. But still, it didn't feel safe. Every night, Claire would sit by the window, staring into the dark. Her voice quieter now, more focused. "They think fear will stop me," she said one night. "It won't. It'll only prove I'm close." And she was. One morning, she got an email from an anonymous address. Subject line, "They meet Fridays." No message, just a location pin. An abandoned marina storage near the old docks. She hesitated only a moment, then said, "Jake, you coming?" I didn't even answer. Of course I was. We drove out after sundown. The lake shimmered in the distance. Fog rising off the water. The storage building looked empty, but inside, faint lights flickered through the cracks. We hid behind a half-fallen fence. Through a window we could see them. 3 men in suits, 1 woman, all talking over piles of papers and cash boxes. Claire zoomed in with her phone camera. One of them turned. Richard Dole. She whispered, "Got you." Then, One of them looked straight toward our hiding spot. For a second, I thought maybe he'd seen the reflection. But he turned away. We held our breath until they left. As we crept closer, we found a small office inside. Stacked boxes labeled Bridge Materials 2021, 2022, 2023. But inside them, only shredded documents and broken hard drives. Except one file left behind on the desk. A check, dated last week, made out to Harris Construction Group for $128,000. Signed by Richard Dole himself. Claire took photos, bagged the check, whispered, "This is the nail in the coffin." But as we turned to leave, headlights flashed behind us. A car door slammed. Voices shouted, "Drop it! Hands where we can see!" We froze. 3 men, not FBI. Private security dressed like cops. Claire looked at me and mouthed, "Run." I didn't. I stayed. And then, everything went black. If you were Jake, would you have run when Claire told you to? Or stayed to protect her even if it meant getting caught? When I woke up, everything was dark. My wrists ached. My head was pounding. I tried to move, couldn't. My hands were tied to a chair, ankles duct-taped to the legs. A dim bulb flickered overhead. The smell of gasoline and old wood filled the air. Then I heard it, Claire's voice, muffled, angry, in the next room. "Let her go," I shouted. The door creaked open, and a man stepped out. Tall, gray hair, calm eyes that didn't blink much. He wore a black suit, spotless white shirt, no tie. He smiled like someone who'd already won. "Mr. Daniels," he said, "you should have stayed out of this." I knew that voice. I'd heard it at HOA meetings. Richard Dole. He circled me slowly, like a cat inspecting a trapped bird. "You think your sister is some kind of hero?" he said. "She's just stirring up old mud that should have stayed buried." I spat. "You stole from this town. You wrecked lives." He leaned close, voice cold and precise. "No, I built this town. And when the government stopped funding us, I found my own way to keep the money flowing." From the other room, Claire shouted, "You call that keeping it flowing? You laundered millions." He smiled faintly. "I redistributed resources. You wouldn't understand. You people see corruption. I see continuity. I struggled against the tape. What do you want from us?" He turned his back, walked to a desk, and picked up Claire's phone. "Everything," he said. "All your files, backups, drives. You hand them over. You both walk out alive." Then he turned to his men. "Bring her out." They dragged Claire in, hands bound, face bruised but defiant. Even tied up, she looked like she was the one in control. Dole leaned in front of her. "Claire, you were so close to being smart. You could have walked away. But you had to play detective." She met his stare and said, "Funny. That's what they said to every criminal I ever caught." He chuckled, the kind of laugh that made your skin crawl. Still FBI spirit, even off duty. Admirable, but misplaced. Then, without warning, he grabbed her encrypted USB drive off the table. "This is the problem," he said. "You think these little files are proof. But proof means nothing when we own the courts." He tossed it onto the ground, crushed it under his boot. Claire didn't flinch. She just smiled. Dole frowned. "What's funny?" she whispered. "That wasn't the only copy." For the first time, his smile cracked. "You're bluffing." She tilted her head. "Try me. Agent McNeil has everything. In fact," she nodded toward the window, "he's probably listening right now." Dole turned to one of his men. "Check it." They rushed outside. Moments later, the sound of engines revving. Then sirens. Dozens. Flashing red and blue lights through the cracks of the old shack. Dole cursed. "You brought them here." Claire smirked. "No. You did. You left your phone on when you called for backup. The next few seconds were chaos. Windows shattered. Doors kicked in. FBI tactical agents swarmed the building. One yelled, "Drop your weapons." Dole's men raised their guns. But before they could fire, floodlights blinded everyone inside. Gunfire echoed through the warehouse, short bursts. One of the guards fell. Another surrendered. Dole didn't run. He just stood there, breathing heavily, watching the chaos around him. Then he looked at Claire. "Do you really think they'll believe you? After everything?" Claire said softly, "They don't need to. The files speak louder than you ever could." McNeil stepped forward, gun raised. "Richard Dole, you're under arrest for fraud, extortion, embezzlement, and obstruction of justice." Dole smiled again, faintly. "You think this ends here, Agent? You're just taking down the puppet, not the puppeteer." McNeil's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" Dole leaned closer, lowering his voice. "There are others, bigger than me. You'll never touch them." And just like that, he stopped talking, silent, composed, as if being arrested was part of the plan. Outside, as they loaded him into the car, Claire stood in the cold night air, breathing deeply. The fog had lifted. The lake was calm again. McNeil turned to her. "Is that all of them?" She shook her head slowly. "No, just the first layer." The next morning, our house looked like a war zone. Files everywhere, walls dented, kitchen window shattered. But Claire didn't care. She sat at the table with her laptop, rebuilding what was lost. Every folder, every backup. "I told you," she said with a tired smile. "They never learn." Then the phone rang. Unknown number again. She put it on speaker. A distorted voice spoke, calm and deliberate. "Nice work, Agent. But you still don't know who signed your paycheck." Then the line went dead. Claire froze. McNeil's face went pale when she told him. "That's impossible," he said. "That voice, we traced it months ago. It belongs to someone who shouldn't exist anymore." "What do you mean?" Claire asked. He looked at her. "Your old boss. The one who assigned you your first HOA fraud case. He died 3 years ago." She leaned back, staring at the floor. It didn't make sense. Unless, she whispered, he didn't die. He disappeared. For the first time since this started, I saw something in Claire's eyes I'd never seen before, real fear. She stood, packed her laptop into a black case, and said quietly, "This isn't over. Not even close." That night, the sky over the lake was clear again. But in the distance, a single drone hovered silent, red light blinking, watching. The next morning, Claire was gone. No note, no message, just her coffee mug half full, still warm. On the counter, a small flash drive sat beside a sticky note that read, "If I don't come back, finish the story." If you found that flash drive, would you open it, knowing it might reveal secrets powerful people would kill to keep hidden? The morning Claire disappeared, the air felt wrong, too still, like the world was holding its breath. Her mug was still warm on the counter, her car gone, and that tiny flash drive sat under a sticky note that said, "If I don't come back, finish the story." I turned it over in my hand for maybe 10 minutes. It weighed nothing, but it felt heavy, like if I plugged it in, nothing in our lives would ever be the same again. Still, I had to know. I slid it into my laptop. The screen flickered once. Then a single folder appeared. Project Lakeline. Inside, hundreds of PDFs, scanned contracts, bank statements, and emails. All stamped with the same logo. HOA Development Authority, Federal Grant Program. And then I saw the names. Claire's boss, the mayor, the HOA president. even a senator. But one name froze me completely. Richard Dole. Next to his name, a signature. And next to that, another one. The initials looked familiar. CD. Claire Daniels. For a second, my brain refused to believe what I was seeing. Why would her name be on the same documents as his? She hated him. She fought against everything he stood for. Unless she wasn't fighting him. Unless she was covering for him. I leaned back, my hands shaking. That's when I noticed something else. A video file. I clicked it open. The footage was grainy. Security cam angle. Two people standing in a dim hallway, a man in a suit, and Claire. It was timestamped 6 months ago. The man's voice was unmistakable. Richard Dole. You're asking for too much, Claire, he said. I can't keep burying your tracks. She snapped back. Then stop using my department as your piggy bank. He sighed. You're already in too deep. You think the Bureau doesn't know? You think they haven't been watching? Claire leaned closer, whispering something I could barely hear. Then I'll bring it all down myself. He laughed. Oh, you'll try. But remember who signed your clearance papers. The video cut out. My stomach dropped. What the hell was this? Had she been part of it once? Or was she pretending? Working from the inside? Either way, the truth was clear. Claire wasn't telling me everything. I heard a sound outside. Tires on gravel. Through the blinds, I saw a black SUV parked across the street. No markings. Windows tinted pitch black. I shut the laptop immediately and yanked out the flash drive. Minutes later, knocking on the door. Firm. Rhythmic. I didn't answer. The knocking turned into pounding. Mr. Daniels. Federal agents. We need to speak with you. I froze. FBI? Or someone pretending to be. I peeked through the peephole. 2 men in suits, no badges visible. I whispered, "What's this about?" The taller one said, "It's about your sister. She's missing. We need her files." That's when I saw it on the man's wrist. A silver ring with the HOA crest. They weren't FBI. They were Dole's people. I ran to the back door, too late. Another SUV blocked the alley. I grabbed the flash drive, stuffed it into a box of tools, and slipped out the basement window. My neighbor's yard was dark, but familiar. I crouched behind his fence, watching as the men broke into my house. They searched everywhere. Upturned drawers, smashed walls, flipped furniture. They were looking for one thing, the drive. When they finally left, I stayed hidden another hour. Heart pounding. Every sound in the night felt like a threat. I couldn't go to the police. Not after what I'd seen on that drive. I couldn't trust anyone. So I called the only person I thought might help. McNeil. It rang twice before he answered. "Jake? Where's your sister?" "I don't know. But I found something. It's bad. Really bad." "How bad?" "Names, signatures, money trails. Even hers." He went quiet. Too quiet. "Where are you right now?" "In my garage." He said softly, "Don't move. I'm sending someone to get you." But something in his tone made my stomach twist. It wasn't concern. It was control. I remembered Dole's words to him the night of the arrest. "You're just taking down the puppet, not the puppeteer." And suddenly it hit me. McNeil wasn't helping Claire. He was using her. I didn't wait. I jumped into my truck and drove. Fast. No headlights. Back roads only. The flash drive was the only thing that mattered now. I had to get it somewhere safe. But halfway down the causeway, I saw her car, Claire's, parked sideways on the bridge. Doors open. I slammed the brakes. The night was dead quiet, only the wind moving through the reeds. Then I heard it, faintly, from under the bridge. A voice. I climbed down the embankment, and there she was, standing knee-deep in the water. soaked, shivering, eyes wide. Claire. She looked up slowly. Jake. You weren't supposed to open it. I waded in. What are you talking about? You left it for me. She shook her head. No. I left it to keep it hidden. You don't know what's on it. I saw the files. Your name. The whole thing. Her face fell. Then it's already too late. She pulled something from her jacket. A small black device with a blinking red light. Claire, what is that? It's a failsafe, she said quietly. They track anyone who opens that drive. It's a digital bait trap. And now they know exactly where we are. A sound cut through the night, the low thump of a helicopter overhead. Searchlights swept across the lake. Claire grabbed my arm. We have to move. Now. But. Now, Jake. We ran along the shoreline, ducking behind trees as the beam passed. She led me to an old boathouse. Dusty, abandoned, half collapsed. Inside, she opened a hatch in the floor. A hidden tunnel. How did you? I built it, she said. After my first case went bad. The tunnel led into darkness. The air was damp, metallic, humming faintly. Claire, I whispered. What is this place? She looked back at me with tired eyes. This is where the HOA's real money went. The offshore network they built under the town. At the end of the tunnel was a steel door, sealed tight with a keypad. Claire punched in a code. The door hissed open. Rows of servers lined the walls, glowing faint blue in the dark. She pointed at them. This is Lakeline. This is the real HOA, the one nobody ever sees. I stared at the servers. Buzzing, alive, endless. Claire, how deep does this go? She whispered. All the way to Washington. If you were Jake, and found out your own sister built part of the system she was trying to destroy, would you still trust her? Or walk away before it's too late? The server room buzzed like a heartbeat. Cold, mechanical, alive. Blue light glowed on Claire's face as she typed fast. Eyes locked on the screen. Lines of code scrolled like falling rain. I stood behind her, trying to understand any of it. What is this, Claire? What are you doing? She didn't look up. Ending it. The walls hummed louder, a low electric growl. I glanced around. Every screen showed the same phrase. Project Lakeline, Federal Network Accessing. I felt a knot in my gut. Claire, you said this was the HOA's system. Why does it say federal? She paused, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Because it was never just about the HOA, Jake. She turned toward me, eyes dark, tired, but burning with purpose. It started as a housing development grant, post-war rebuilding, suburban expansion. But when funding got cut, they found another way. They funneled taxpayer money through fake HOA projects to fund covert land deals, political campaigns, even surveillance. My voice cracked. You're telling me the HOA is part of the government? She shook her head. Worse, the government is part of the HOA. My heart skipped. That's insane. Claire smiled faintly. That's what they count on people thinking. She opened another terminal. A live feed appeared hundreds of neighborhoods across the country. Cul-de-sacs, guardhouses, community cameras. And each screen had one thing in common, the HOA seal, bottom right corner. She whispered, they used our own neighborhoods as data farms. Every security cam, every smart gate, every Wi-Fi-enabled mailbox, all feeding into Lakeline. I stared at her. So the HOA isn't just about lawns and fences? No, she said. It's about control. Suddenly the lights flickered. The hum of the servers grew louder. Claire froze. They're in the system. What do you mean? They found us. An alarm blared, shrill, mechanical, echoing through the tunnel. Red emergency lights began flashing. "Jake!" she yelled. "Pull the breaker on that wall." I ran to it, yanked the lever down hard. Sparks flew. Half the lights went out. Claire's laptop screen went black. Then rebooted. She looked at me, eyes wide. "They bypassed it. Someone's overriding the shutdown." The monitors flashed. "Admin access granted. Agent M." I whispered, "McNeil." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "He was never FBI. He was management." The monitors shifted to camera feeds, and one of them showed him. Agent McNeil, walking down the tunnel toward us, flanked by two men in black tactical gear. I backed away from the door. "What do we do?" Claire grabbed a hard drive from the rack, stuffed it in her bag. "We finish it." The steel door burst open, sparks, dust, shouting. McNeil stepped through, gun raised. "Step away from the terminal, Claire." She smirked. "You're late." He aimed lower. "You were good at your job." I almost believed the act. "I wasn't acting," she said. "You used me." He nodded slowly. "And you used me. That's how the game works." He motioned to his men. "Take the drive and clean the room." I stepped forward. "You're not taking anything." McNeil sighed. "You're out of your depth, kid." "Maybe," I said. "But she's not." Claire hit a key on the laptop. Every server light turned red. A progress bar appeared. "Data upload, 62%. McNeil lunged. "You're sending it? To who?" She smiled. "To everyone." Gunfire erupted. The air filled with smoke, metal, and chaos. Claire dove behind a server tower, dragging me with her. "Jake, when I say run." "Run where?" "Just run." The bar hit 90%. A bullet shattered a monitor near her head. She gritted her teeth, typing faster. McNeil shouted, "Stop it. You don't understand what's at stake." Claire yelled back, "I understand perfectly." The progress bar hit 100%. Every screen in the room went white. Then silence. Just the faint hum of dying power. McNeil stepped closer, gun shaking in his hand. "What did you do?" She looked up, calm, almost smiling. "I told the world the truth." He fired. The sound echoed like thunder. When the smoke cleared, she was still standing, but bleeding from her shoulder. She clutched the wound, stumbled forward, and whispered, "You can kill me, but not the message." McNeil lowered his gun, eyes wide with disbelief, and then his earpiece crackled. Static. Then a voice. "Sir, it's out. Every outlet. Every feed. It's everywhere." McNeil's expression collapsed. He looked at her like a man watching his empire burn. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Claire smiled weakly. "Yeah, I rebuilt the bridge." Outside, sirens grew louder, real ones this time. Not HOA, not fake agents. Real FBI. Real press. The door blew open again, light flooding the room. McNeil's men dropped their weapons. And as they dragged him away, Claire fell into my arms, whispering, "It's over." But her voice faded. We got her to the hospital. She made it through surgery. Barely. When she woke up, the news was everywhere. FBI raids, HOA syndicate linked to political laundering. Project Lakeline leak exposes nationwide surveillance scandal. Suburban Brotherhood collapses overnight. She watched it all in silence. Then said softly, "It's never really over." A week later, I was packing boxes, ready to leave that cursed town behind. Then the doorbell rang. No one was there, just an envelope. No return address. Inside a single photo, me and Claire, at the hospital, and scribbled in red ink at the bottom, "Nice work. Phase 2 begins soon." I called her immediately, no answer. Her apartment empty. Laptop gone. Closet cleared. Only a note on her pillow. You were right, Jake. The bridge never ends. That night I drove back to the lake. The broken bridge still stood, half gone, half standing. The wind howled through the empty beams, like it was whispering something. And then, a single light flickered in the window of the island house. I stared at it for a long time, and for a second, I could have sworn I saw her silhouette. Do you think Claire really survived? Or was that light her way of saying goodbye? Let me know what you believe, because I'm starting to think the HOA was never just a neighborhood problem.